What's up, y'all? Welcome to 2nd and 15, a Philadelphia Eagles fan podcast presented by Old City Sports Network, the best network for all your Philadelphia sports needs. This is your host, Michael Roscoe, and here's what we got going on for this week. The Birds got a much-needed win, still by a close margin, though, against the Cleveland Browns with the return of A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith in the lineup. We'll recap and discuss that win. Is Nick Sirianni engaging in clown behavior? And what will the Eagles need to do to get a win over Danny Dimes and the New York Giants this Sunday? This episode, the entire 2nd and 15, a Philadelphia Eagles fan podcast, and Old City Sports Network are sponsored by Righteous Felon Craft Jerky. Use promo code OCSN for 15% off your order at righteousfelon.com. We're also brought to you by SeatGeek. Use our promo code Old City Sports Network, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. 2nd and 15 and Old City Sports Network are also brought to you by Decals by Aaron and Warlord Beard Oil. Head on over to warlordbeardoil.com and use our promo code OLDSPORTS for 15% off your purchase today. Finally, head on over to oldcitysports.com to help contribute to the production of this podcast and the network as a whole by purchasing some of our awesome merch. We got t-shirts, hoodies, glassware, flags, you name it. So head on over to oldcitysports.com and help out a great network by purchasing some awesome merch today. All right, y'all, let's go into our first subject of the night, which is the Week 6 recap. I'll be honest with y'all, my score prediction was completely off, but I got the Devonta Smith touchdown right at least. After yet another scoreless first quarter, the Eagles would take the lead with a Jake Elliott field goal to make it 3-0 in the second. In the second quarter, over 7 minutes left in the half, on a 3rd and 7 out of the shotgun from Cleveland's 23-yard line, Hurts fires a dime to A.J. Brown in coverage, who makes the catch in the end zone for the first touchdown of the game. Eagles extend their lead to 10-0. After a field goal by the Browns shortens the lead, with 25 seconds left in the half, the Birds attempt a 57-yard field goal, but it's blocked by edge rusher Myles Garrett, recovered by former Eagle and current Browns DB Rodney McLeod, who runs it into the end zone to tie the game before the half. Despite the score, though, the Eagles definitely outplayed the Browns in the first half. Third quarter, 10.5 minutes left, Browns kicker Dustin Hopkins attempts to take the lead with a 52-yard attempt, which sails wide right and the kick is no good. With under 3 minutes left on a 3rd and 14, Jalen Hurts attempts a pass to Jahan Dotson in the end zone, but it sails way past, and the Birds would settle for a field goal, retaking the lead 13-10. The Browns would eventually tie it up again with a 49-yard field goal of their own. However, with under 8 minutes left, 1st and 10 from the Browns' 45-yard line, Jalen Hurts finds Devonta Smith, who takes it down the sideline with tight end Grant Calcaterra leading the block, and Smith would score, retaking the lead 20-13. The Browns would get close to the end zone, making it into the Eagles' red zone as far as the 8-yard line. However, the Birds' defense held their own and forced the Browns to settle for a field goal. To seal the game, the Birds would convert on 1 third down, a 3rd and 2 with Jalen faking a shovel pass to Saquon Barkley and running it for the conversion, and finally icing the game with a 40-yard deep pass to A.J. Brown on a 2nd and 11. Getting the first down with under 2 minutes left, and all they needed to do was kill the clock. The Birds get a much-needed win against Cleveland, 20-16. Jalen Hurts would finish the game 16 for 25 for 264 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. A.J. Brown would finish the game with 6 receptions, 116 yards, and a touchdown, while Devonta Smith would go 3 receptions for 64 yards and a touchdown. I also want to give a shout out to tight end Grant Calcaterra for filling in for the injured Dallas Goedert, logging 4 receptions on 4 targets for 67 yards. All right, moving into our next topic, Eagles news and discussion, starting with some injury updates. Tight end Dallas Goedert remains day-to-day at this moment with a potential hamstring injury. Jordan Mailata is potentially going to miss at least a few games with a hamstring injury, and Darius Slay avoiding a serious injury, being considered day-to-day with a knee injury. In other news, the Birds' Week 8 game against the Cincinnati Bengals has been flexed out of the 4:25 p.m. Eastern Time primetime spot, with their game moving to a 1 o'clock kickoff time. This is so that the Washington Commanders and the Chicago Bears air in primetime with 2 strong performing rookie quarterbacks going head-to-head. Listen, I get it. We've been flexed into primetime games before, so I can understand being flexed out of them. Hopefully I'll still get to see the game locally on TV in my area, though. And finally, an interesting scenario could play out with the Eagles, as Hassan Reddick continues to hold out with the Jets. After acquiring a new agent, he's been granted by the team to seek a trade from the Jets. Prior to this whole thing occurring, in the deal that sent Hassan Reddick from the Eagles to the Jets for a 2026 third-round conditional pick, Howie put a clause in there stating if Reddick was traded to an NFC team, the other condition within that conditional trade, the Jets would owe the Eagles a 2026 second-round pick, which Howie's Magic could then flip for a better draft pick, a player, who knows. Now, we just saw Detroit Lions star edge Aiden Hutchinson go down with a broken shin, ending his season and leaving a powerhouse Detroit team in need of a solid edge rusher. With the trade deadline coming up soon, will the Eagles benefit even more for this trade? We'll just have to wait and see. All right, moving on to discussions, opinions, and overreactions from this Week 6 game, starting with the offense. You know, a lot of good things that came out of the game are not getting as much recognition as all the drama with Nick Sirianni, which we will get into later on. But I wanted to highlight those good action points from this game. Starting with the offense, Jalen Hurts had 0 turnovers. No interceptions, no lost fumbles, no fumbles in general, no nothing. He finally snaps the 9-game streak in which he committed at least 1 turnover. That's growth right there, and I'll take that. Also with Hurts, the pass that sealed the win for us was an audible that he called. This is, I believe, his second game-sealing audible that he has called, so I'm glad Jalen's getting better at his defensive reads and having the confidence to make these types of decisions on his own, especially if it's a decision that Nick Sirianni's dumbass is making and he's calling an audible because he sees something better. His connection with A.J. Brown showed a small glimpse of A.J. in Jalen's 2022 days. Speaking of A.J. Brown, it was damn good to have some of our offensive weapons back in the lineup. A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith would combine for 180 yards and 2 touchdowns. The boys are back in town. A.J. Brown showed why he is one of the most dominant wide receivers in the league, making incredible catches in coverage, the deep routes, you name it, he can do it all. He proves why he's such an impact player on this team. Coming off of 3 missed games from a hamstring injury, he came back like he hadn't even left. Every catch he made, 6 receptions for 9 targets, was simple yet effective, but also very physical. He mentioned on his touchdown catch that he took advantage of a Browns DB moving along with the motion tight end and then making the snag. He saw that they were going in man and was like, I'm taking advantage of this. And he made that catch while being wrapped up by the defender, which is, cherry on top. He's very strong, and a lot of DBs can't force the incompletion or knock the ball out of his hands as often as they could with other receivers. He's an asset to the team, and it showed. Also, the next man-up mentality came into full effect with Grant Calcaterra. Not only making catches, including one 34-yarder, but being able to lead the block on the Devonta Smith touchdown. Now, he's been criticized in the past for his pass catching abilities not matching his blocking abilities, energy, whatever you want to call it. But he was able to have a good balance of both to help his team out to get the win. And you can always count on Devonta Smith. Only 3 receptions, however, he's getting so many yards after them and a score, which matters the most. Even if he doesn't get into the end zone, he could still set us up to be in a great scoring position. He's had many of those catches before. Now, with the critiques I have for the offense, obviously we need to give Saquon the ball more. There is no reason that Saquon Barkley against a 21st ranked rushing defense should get only 47 yards. Now, granted, that is some of him not playing as good as he has shown that he can, but it also reflects on the play calling, on calling run plays during inopportune moments, like having a carry for 5 yards and then not having a run play for him for like 7 to 10 plays, then having a run again, which he gets 9 to 10 yards, then not having another run play until multiple plays later. It doesn't help our running back. A running back can't gain a rhythm if he doesn't have some level of consistency in the run play calls. Also, I know that A.J. Brown is a wide receiver, but he's just as successful with his inside slant routes as he is on the outside. And it just didn't seem like they varied his routes in the play calling at all. It was all like, deep ball, go ball passes on the outside, no like inside slants at all. So I would love for that to change going into this next game so that we don't run into like another stale offense kind of situation. Also, I'd love for Sirianni to stop interfering for Kellen Moore, for God's sakes. I've asked this for like weeks now. Let's actually see it happen. Now, with the defense, I wish this defense was much more consistent, but hey, they got the job done, right? Yes, 16 points were put up on them, but that defense didn't give up a single touchdown. The only touchdown that the Browns had was off that blocked field goal attempt, with an all-pro in Myles Garrett being the one who blocked it. Now, I don't know if this is true or not, but I doubt Myles Garrett is routinely playing a whole lot of special teams. I could be wrong, but come on now. I'm not surprised that he was the one to get the block. Anyway, a special teams touchdown and 3 field goals. Not too shabby for a defense that has been riddled with mediocrity and inconsistency. But moving on to a more positive attributes of the defense in this game, our young corners, they showed up. With Cooper DeJean in his first start, he logged 6 total tackles, 5 of them solo, a quarterback hit, and recorded a half sack. And with that, here's an absolute out-of-pocket stat. Cooper DeJean getting that sack was the first time a starting white cornerback recorded a sack in 23 years. An absolute diabolical statistic. But yeah, anyway, he flashed potential in that game for sure. He kept up with the receivers, made good reads, showed a lot of energy and effort without compromising his zone or having any big plays occur. With Quinyon Mitchell, he continues to be great as well. He logged 3 tackles, and then between him and Cooper DeJean, on 8 combined targets, they only allowed 3 catches for 23 yards and no touchdowns. This duo is going to do great things, I'm telling y'all. We finally saw something out of Bryce Huff. Not a whole lot, but at least something, as he logged 2 tackles, a half sack, and a quarterback hit. You also had Josh Sweat, Jalen Carter, and Nolan Smith all logging 1 sack each, and then Thomas Booker and Milton Williams combining for a sack. 5 total sacks on the quarterback amongst 7 different Eagles defensive players. Overall, this defense would log 66 tackles, 5 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, 2 pass deflections, and 10 quarterback hits. They gave Deshaun Watson a hard time for sure. A big critique I have is the inability to log any interceptions against someone like Deshaun Watson. 1 interception almost occurred, but Quinyon Mitchell and C.J. Gardner-Johnson ran into each other and just forced the incompletion rather than an interception. So the communication there needs to be a little bit better. Additionally, I wish the defense didn't put themselves in so many red zone defense opportunities despite them not allowing any touchdown, but by allowing receivers to make big plays along the outside. Other than that, I praise this team's defensive performance. There's always room for improvement, but hey, they did the job this week. That's all we can really ask for. All right, now moving on to the topic of head coach Nick Sirianni. So, a lot of the media covering this game has either been critiques against the Eagles for not winning by a larger margin. Shocking, I know. The media just can't let us have anything, right? or against Nick Sirianni and his behavior. For those who haven't seen it, a clip was shown of Nick Sirianni apparently taunting our own fan base after, quote, barely beating the Browns, but then having his kids there in the press conference afterward to make himself look not bad and or have reporters ask questions related to the incident in front of his kids. However, a fan posted on Reddit what Sirianni apparently had actually said, and it was related to statements made by the fan and other surrounding fans about running the ball. I know a common Eagles fan request at this point in our lives. In response, Nick said something along the lines of, "Calm down, don't worry, I'm on it." The yelling from Nick that was caught on camera was responding back along the lines of, quote, "See, I told you we'd run the ball." Regardless of the context of this yelling conversation, whatever you want to call that, people continue to put Nick in the hot seat and you have some others defending him due to his success with the Birds over the past 4 years, and a lot of other feelings in between. This stunt has had some analysts commenting that he is a clown or engaging in clown behavior. So the question is he? My answer at this moment is yes. I still have my doubts about Sirianni. Yes, as a coach, he's like 36-19. However, if he hadn't been interfering and making boneheaded dumbass decisions over the past season and a half or so, I don't know, that 36-19 record could have easily been 45-10 or 44-11, hell, even 42-13. But no, his arrogance has put this Eagles team in jeopardy and losing situations on multiple occasions. Also, it kind of looks like a cop-out in the press conference. To me, Nick's process is like, oh, here, I looked like an arrogant asshole by yelling at my own fan base, so let me bring my small children into the press conference for sympathy and question avoidance. For all we know, it could have been just because he purely wanted his kids there. Sure, that is a possibility. But more so, it's looking like he wanted to make himself look better after what he did, and that in itself is clown behavior. Overall, I do think that Sirianni continues to engage in detrimental behavior, whether that be clown behavior or whatever else you want to call it. It is hindering our team to be as successful as we can. There is a point in all of this. Yes, a win is a win, but there are multiples of these wins that should have been blowouts. The Eagles have gone over 670 days without a win by at least 15 points. And I feel like Nick's ego is a big part of that. We've fired successful coaches in the past. Hell, we fired the coach that helped us get to and win the Super Bowl in Doug Peterson. So don't put any doubt into the chance that Nick Sirianni could be gone at some point this season if his behavior does not change. All right, y'all, final topic of the night. We're going to go into the Week 7 preview. The Birds head up north on I-95 to take on a divisional rival in the New York Giants. The Giants are coming off a poor performance against the Cincinnati Bengals, losing 17-7, while the Birds are coming off that narrow win against the Browns, who were 1-4 going into that game. With injuries on both teams amongst all other factors, here's what I think the Birds need to do to secure that win for Week 7. First thing, we need to play more diversified, aggressive offense. Offensive lineman Lane Johnson said that the offense has been, quoted, constipated. Probably because Nick Sirianni is holding our team back, but we already know that by now. We're going to be challenged by New York's defense. Despite the team's losing record, the Giants' defense are ranked first in the league in sacks and fourth in quarterback hits. With this, Jalen Hurts is going to have to make quicker decisions and not hold on to the ball for like 2.5 to 3 seconds at a time. The Giants may be without Kayvon Thibodeau, who is on IR, but the combination of Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns is pretty scary, especially considering our left tackle Jordan Mailata won't be playing due to that hamstring injury. So as far as I understand, Fred Johnson is slated to take Jordan Mailata's spot. Johnson had started at right tackle when Lane Johnson was injured, and it didn't give him much hope despite the decent performances against the Saints and the Browns when he needed to fill in those roles. He held his own against Myles Garrett, but it wasn't for a full game. One thought that I had that I think would be beneficial is to slide Mekhi Becton out to the tackles since he has experience there, and then have Tyler Steen play guard. To me, that gives a more aggressive approach with more like reliability in it. Not saying Fred Johnson's a bad player. I just wish there was a little more inconsistency from what we've seen out of him over these past couple weeks so far. With our play calling, we got to diversify them and we got to make plays at the correct, actual, opportune times. Meaning that we have, for example, a design run on like second and shorts or within the red zone, not on like a 3rd and 16 situation from our own 40. There's no reason we can't get into the red zone and have Saquon punch in at least 2 touchdowns. The Giants have given up almost 5 yards per carry to running backs this year, which is 24th in the league. And with this as a revenge game, we need Saquon's run game to be utilized more, especially in those red zone opportunities. With the Giants secondary, they held Joe Burrow to under 210 yards and no touchdowns. However, they allowed him a 47-yard rushing touchdown, and then they allowed over 70 yards apiece to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Now that we have a healthy A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, there's no reason we shouldn't be airing it out deep to them on one play and then having them cut out on the inside on the next, etc. Their secondary's performance was inconsistent against Cincy, so we got to diversify our plays so that they remain caught off guard and cannot pick up on any offensive patterns throughout the game. Long story short, our line's got to keep Lawrence and Burns in check, and we got to strategically diversify the play calling, keeping the defense on their toes. As for our defense, our main strategy should just be to bring the pressure on Daniel Jones. While their O-line has been doing pretty good, the weakest point on that Giants offense has been Daniel Jones. He made a boneheaded throw that was intercepted last week while under pressure. He's not good under pressure. And our defense this past week put a lot more pressure on the quarterback than they have in the first 4 games. Multiple players got sacks against Watson, so we need that same level of energy from our rush defense this week against Daniel Jones. I imagine that Jones is going to be limited to checkdowns and run plays since Malik Neighbors has been banged up, and at the moment we're unsure if he'll play this Sunday. If he does play, I say that our defense run man coverage and have Quinyon lined up on Neighbors. If Neighbors doesn't play, I can't imagine that Daniel Jones is going to air out the deep ball in the field at high volume of numbers. Neighbors is their primary deep ball target. Our defense needs to blitz more, play up more, and play more like press coverage. I imagine the receivers will be limited to short, medium yard gains to Wan'Dale Robinson and Darius Slayton, such as hitches, screens, inside slants, whatever, or checkdowns to Tyrone Tracy. If we blitz and press up more, it'll shut down both their run and pass game, or force Daniel Jones to either rush more or make inaccurate deep ball passes. Plus, if we're pressing up and not playing so far off the ball, we'll be able to shut down Daniel Jones's rushes quicker than if we were to have only a few up front and then the rest of our secondary too far off the ball. Overall, we need to play further up, blitz more, bring pressure on Daniel Jones, and force him to make those similar mistakes that he did last week. All right, predictions for this Week 7 game. I feel like this week is the week we finally win by at least double digits. I'm predicting a score of 24-14 with Saquon Barkley getting at least 2 touchdowns and A.J. Brown getting 1, with Jake Elliott bringing the field goal to get us to 24 points. Saquon is going to have a much better game than last week. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes for over 100 rushing yards. This is a storybook opportunity for him, y'all. He returns to the stadium of the team that wouldn't keep and wouldn't pay him, and it's to a bunch of fans that desecrated his name and burned his jerseys when he moved to Philly. Ain't no way this man ain't popping off against their sorry asses. All right, y'all, that is it for this week's episode. Thank you all for joining us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, or follow on YouTube, X, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok by searching at 2nd and 15 or by the full name 2nd and 15, a Philadelphia Eagles fan podcast. You can also find the audio for each and every single episode releasing Thursday mornings on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Player FM, or wherever you get your podcasts. All the titles for the social media will be in the description link of this episode. We'll see y'all next week. Don't forget to catch the Birds' first divisional game of the season this Sunday at 1 o'clock Eastern Time against the New York Giants. Don't forget to stay fly like an eagle, and as always, go Birds!